Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when a single decision defines your self-esteem, your dignity, and your future. And this decision is simple yet powerful. There are betrayals that should never be forgiven. Carl Jung, one of the great thinkers of psychology, believed that the human unconscious reveals truths we often deny ourselves. Among them, the painful reality that some people never change, and that insisting on forgiving certain betrayals is not a sign of strength, but of self-deception. Cheating does not happen by chance. It is a choice, a conscious decision to deceive, hurt, and break trust. Some wounds are not meant to heal. Some offenses are not worth forgetting. Today, I will reveal the 7 betrayals you should never forgive, not out of bitterness or revenge, but because your peace, self-respect, and soul depend on it. Stay with me until the end, for by understanding these truths, you will finally free yourself from those who do not deserve your grace. 1. Lies that destroy trust. Trust is one of the most essential pillars of any relationship. Without it, everything crumbles. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." When someone lies to you, that is exactly what happens. A painful awakening to the reality that this person is not who you thought they were. A lie is never just a lie. It is a choice, a conscious decision to deceive, hide the truth, and often manipulate. Some say everyone deserves a second chance, but think, how often does a liar truly change? The problem is not just the lie itself, but what it destroys. When someone you love lies to you, they are not only altering the truth, but undermining your perception of reality. The lie becomes a crack in the relationship's foundation, a fissure that expands until one day, everything collapses. Even worse than the lie itself is its repetition. If someone lies once and faces no real consequences, they learn they can do it again. Jung believed people project onto others what they refuse to accept in themselves. Thus, liars always have justifications. I lied to protect you. I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't a big deal. But the truth is, lying is not a random mistake. It is a behavioral pattern, a repeated betrayal of trust. Worse still, lies rarely come alone. They bring manipulation, excuses, and distortions of reality. Have you ever noticed how certain people change their version of events every time you ask? There's always a new detail, a new excuse, a new scapegoat. This is not remorse, it is control. Jung said that behind illusion hides the shadow, the dark side of the human being. When someone lies to you, they distance you from the truth and keep you in the illusion that suits them best. The greatest lesson here is simple. A person who lies to you does not respect you, and without respect, there is no true love. A story of pain and deception. Imagine Alice, a woman who believed she had found the love of her life. Daniel was affectionate, attentive, and claimed he would do anything for her. But over time, small lies began to surface. First, excuses for being late, then deleted messages from his phone. When Alice confronted him, he laughed and called her paranoid. One day, Alice uncovered everything. Daniel had another life, another relationship, a parallel story to hers. He cried, begged for forgiveness, and swore it was a mistake. Heartbroken, Alice forgave him. Weeks later, he lied again. Only then did she understand the hardest truth. Lies are not accidents. They are choices. And those who lie once will lie again. 2. Disguised. Disrespect. Disrespect does not always come in the form of shouting or direct insults. In fact, the worst kind of disrespect is silent, disguised as jokes, subtle comments, or even indifference. Jung said, "What you resist persists." And nothing is truer when dealing with people who insist on devaluing you. Disrespect rarely appears suddenly. At first, it's subtle. Gestures, a joke that makes you feel inferior, a contemptuous glance when you speak, an impatient tone when you express your feelings. You sense something is off, but you ignore it. After all, it wasn't meant to hurt, right? But this is how it begins. Disrespect slowly seeps in, corroding your self-esteem like rust on iron, until one day you realize you no longer feel like yourself. Cruelly, the victim of disrespect often ends up feeling guilty. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Maybe. I'm too sensitive, they didn't mean it. But here's the truth. Respect never needs to be begged for. If someone repeatedly invalidates your emotions, ridicules your opinions, or treats your pain as irrelevant, that is not love. It is control. Jung also spoke of the shadow, the unconscious side of the human psyche we project onto others. Disguised disrespect often comes from people who need to belittle you to feel superior. Such individuals will never acknowledge the harm they cause. Instead, they twist the situation and make you feel like you are the problem. If you complain, they laugh and say you're making a mountain out of a molehill. If you express pain, they call you dramatic. If you set boundaries, they accuse you of being cold. But know this: someone who truly loves you will never belittle your pain. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship. When it is stripped away, what remains is not love. It is a power game, a story of silence and contempt. Mariana was a strong woman. When she met Raphael, she thought she'd finally found someone who valued her. At first he was kind and considerate, but over time, the subtle jabs began. You don't understand politics. Stop talking nonsense. Why do you dress up so much? You'll find someone better. Oh, Mariana, you take everything so seriously. Lighten up. She felt the sting of his words. But whenever she confronted him, Raphael dismissed her. You're overreacting. It's just a joke. One day, at a dinner with friends, he mocked her appearance. Everyone laughed. Mariana smiled outwardly. But inside, something died. She realized Raphael had spent years destroying every beautiful thing she saw in herself. That night, Mariana cried alone. She knew if she stayed, what remained of her self-esteem wouldn't survive much longer. 3. Emotional manipulation and control. Manipulation rarely appears as a direct blow. It arrives slowly, stealthily, wrapped in sweet words and empty promises. At first, it seems like care, attention, concern, but gradually, you sense something is wrong, though you can't explain it. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Manipulation works exactly this way. It blinds you, makes you doubt yourself until you accept the unacceptable as normal. A manipulator has a talent for twisting things in their favor. If you question them, they don't defend themselves. They make you feel guilty. If you complain about their hurtful actions, you're too sensitive. If you set boundaries, you're cold and distant. If you challenge their behavior, suddenly you're the villain. After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Emotional manipulation destroys your ability to trust your own feelings. You start doubting your perceptions, wondering if you're overreacting or being unfair. Over time, the victim molds themselves to avoid conflict. You stop expressing pain because you know you'll end up blamed. The scariest part? You don't even realize it's happening. Jung spoke of the shadow, the dark side hidden in the human unconscious. A manipulator isn't just someone who lies or takes advantage. They distort reality to make you a prisoner of your own doubts. If you feel like you're walking on eggshells, carefully choosing words to avoid unpredictable reactions, or if every fight ends with you feeling guilty, know this: you are being manipulated. Emotional manipulation is not love. It is a power game. Jung's lesson: true love liberates. If someone makes you feel trapped, insecure, or constantly guilty, it is not love. It is control. A story of love turned prison. Camila and Tiago seemed to have a perfect relationship. At first, he was attentive, always wanting to know where she was and who she was with. I worry about you. I just want what's best. But over time, concern turned to control. He questioned her friendships, criticized her clothes, insinuated she didn't appreciate him. When she defended herself, Tiago sighed. You always think I'm the bad guy. Can't you see I'm trying to protect you? Camila began avoiding friends to prevent fights. She weighed every word, feeling she was the one at fault. One night, crying in her room, she realized fear had consumed the free woman she once was. Finally, she understood. She wasn't in a relationship. She was in an invisible prison. 4. False apologies and opportunistic regret. True regret doesn't need to be forced, solicited, or demanded. It arises naturally, accompanied by genuine change. But when someone hurts you and only apologizes after being caught, it isn't regret, it's fear of consequences. Jung said, people do what they do because they are who they are. In other words, a person's character is measured not by their promises after a mistake, but by their actions to prevent repeating it. If someone betrays your trust and only apologizes when cornered, they don't feel remorse. They regret being caught. The worst part? They know exactly what to say. I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a mistake. It'll never happen again. But Jung warns, words without actions are empty. A truly remorseful person doesn't need a second chance to prove they've changed. They change on their own. False apologies serve to deceive, manipulate, and keep the victim trapped in the cycle of abuse. The betrayer knows that by showing remorse and promising change, they can win another chance. And the cycle repeats. Deep down, you sense something's wrong. You've heard these promises before, but your mind justifies believing them because accepting the truth hurts more than the lie. Jung spoke of projection, the psychological mechanism where we deposit our hopes onto others, ignoring reality. We want so badly to believe the person can change that we ignore all evidence they never will. The problem? Each time you accept a hollow excuse, the betrayer grows bolder. If someone betrays you once and dares to do it again, the question isn't whether they regret it. It's how many more times you'll let yourself be deceived. Jung's lesson: true regret comes with change. If someone must be caught to apologize, they don't feel sorry. They're desperate to avoid consequences. A story of shattered illusions. Lucas and Sophia had been together for years. He was charismatic and knew how to use words, but also how to lie. Sophia discovered he flirted with other women, had secret conversations, and broke promises. When confronted, Lucas cried, apologized, and said, "It was a mistake, I was lost, it'll never happen again." Sophia wanted to believe. She gave him another chance. Months later, it happened again. Deleted messages, pitiful excuses. This time, Lucas said, "I don't know why I do this, but you're everything to me." Sophia cried, he cried, and she forgave him again. Years later, emotionally devastated, Sophia realized the truth. Lucas was never afraid of hurting her, only of losing her. While she crumbled, he moved on as if nothing happened. 5. Abandonment in tough times. Anyone can stand by you when life is easy, but it's in your darkest moments you discover who truly cares. Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to share the things that matter to you." Few things are more painful than realizing the person who promised to stay leaves when you need them most. Abandonment takes many forms. The friend who disappears when you need a shoulder. The partner who distances themselves when their life crumbles. The family member who refuses to support you. Worst of all, when you try to discuss it, they make you feel guilty for expecting anything. "I didn't know you were struggling. I had my own problems." You never asked for help. But the truth is simple. Those who truly care don't need to be called. They're simply present. Jung asserted that relationships are based on balance. If you give love, loyalty, and support, but receive indifference, you're in a one-sided relationship. Nothing hurts more than realizing you'd do anything for someone, but they wouldn't do the same. Abandonment isn't just physical absence. It's a lack of effort, empathy, and consideration. It's the overwhelming sense that you're fighting alone while the person who should be there moves on as if nothing happened. And when you finally recover, when you find the strength to move forward, these people reappear. "I missed you. Why did you pull away? Things were hard for me too." But Jung teaches us, some relationships exist only when things are good. When trouble comes, those who were never true vanish. Jung's lesson: loyalty is proven not in good times, but in times of pain. If someone didn't stay when you needed them most, they don't deserve to return when it suits them. A story of loneliness and disillusionment. Eduardo was the friend everyone turned to for help. He supported others in their hardships, believing they'd be there for him. But when he lost his job and fell into depression, the phone stopped ringing. The friends he'd helped had excuses. One day at a bar, he saw them laughing, people he considered family. That night he accepted the painful truth. He'd always been alone. 6. Repeated betrayal. We all make mistakes, but repeated mistakes are no longer slips, they're behavioral patterns. Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." If someone betrays your trust once and dares to do it again, it's not a mistake. It's a choice. Repeated betrayal comes with rehearsed apologies, vows of regret, and promises of change. But few understand this. The betrayer only regrets fearing loss. They cry, apologize, call it a mistake. But when you forgive, nothing changes. The cycle repeats. Jung spoke of the unconscious mind that drives us to repeat destructive patterns. Why do we keep forgiving those who don't deserve it? Because we believe this time will be different. Repeated cheating is a test of boundaries. Each time you accept it, you teach the betrayer their actions have no consequences. Why do repeat offenders keep getting chances? Because they've learned they can mess up, apologize, and carry on. Worse yet, each new betrayal hurts less for the betrayer and more for the victim. The first betrayal destroys. The second cuts deep. Over time, pain becomes dangerous numbness. You start accepting the unacceptable. Jung said guilt is a useless burden if it doesn't lead to change. If someone makes mistakes and keeps making them, the problem isn't a lack of remorse, it's a lack of respect. Jung's lesson. Those who cheat once have shown they'll do it again. True learning isn't in giving second chances, it's knowing when to stop accepting empty excuses. A story of broken hearts. Laura and Felipe had been together for years. She loved him, believed in him. When she discovered his first betrayal, he cried, apologized, called it a mistake. She gave him another chance. Months later, another betrayal, another excuse. Laura forgave again, believing love conquers all. One day, while browsing Felipe's phone, she found messages from another woman. Before she could speak, he sighed coldly. "You've forgiven me so many times. Why not once more?" In that moment, Laura faced the truth she'd denied. Felipe was never afraid of hurting her, only of getting caught. The worst part? He knew as long as she believed in him, he'd never stop. 7. People who don't see your worth. The pain of not being valued is silent, but destructive. It erodes your self-esteem until you start believing you're not important. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Many accept less than they deserve because they're trapped in a cycle of devaluation. When you love someone, you naturally strive to improve their life. You're present, supportive, caring. But what if that love isn't returned? What if everything you do is seen as an obligation, not a gesture of love? If someone doesn't see your worth, no effort can convince them to treat you right. People who don't value you show it in small ways. They treat you as an option, make excuses to avoid you, seek you only when they need something. Worst of all, when you finally walk away, they return with grand gestures. We often cling to relationships where we're undervalued, convincing ourselves patience, more love, or effort will make them see our importance. But here's the harsh truth. You should never beg for love from someone who truly values you. Jung's lesson. Love shouldn't be a game of tests and sacrifices. If someone only appreciates you when you threaten to leave, they don't love you. They fear losing your comfort. Your job isn't to teach someone your worth. Those who care never need convincing. A story of unrequited love. Renata was always there for João, listening, supporting, helping. But when she needed help, he had excuses. "Not now, I'm busy." She waited years for him to realize her loyalty. One day, she saw João in love with someone else, willing to do everything he'd never done for her. In that moment, Renata understood. He didn't love her. The cruelest truth? He was never afraid of losing her because he knew she'd never leave. The power of walking away. The biggest lie we're taught about relationships is that we must always forgive, insist, and try again. But the truth is simple and painful. Not everyone deserves a second chance. Carl Jung teaches us that true liberation comes when we awaken to reality. To forgive is noble, but to tolerate repeated betrayals is to betray yourself. Every time you accept a lie, manipulation, or disrespect, you send a message, not to them, but to yourself, that your worth is negotiable. But here's the truth. It is not. You deserve love, respect, and loyalty. And anyone who cannot offer that does not deserve a place in your life. So tell me, which of these betrayals have you faced? And more importantly, when will you finally walk away?